We're on New Testament base. We're on New Testament base. We are 3, 6, 7 lines to the bottom. We're going base apras. You make an error for coin in a base apras. Base apras means a place where you can make. This is a quotation from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says you can make an error for a coin, even a place where there's a plot on the grave where a coin is forbidden to go, midrabanan, right? He's not allowed to enter into that location. So, Maslisin Beis Shammai. Our Mishnah is going to Beis Shammai. Now, why going to Beis Shammai? Beis Shammai, Armin, Ema Arvin, La'adam, Elin, Kain. You can't make an error for a person unless Chayu Klitash Mishasham, unless he has his objects there. Now, objects means his furniture and stuff like that. You can't just have. We have this in the Bavli, the sheet as well. You can't just have food there. He also has to have like furniture and stuff. So Sumchus said in the Mishnah that you can make an error for a Kohen even with Chulin. Now it's interesting. The Mishnah itself brought down the gears. So the version of the Mishnah was Sumchus Omer Af Bechulin Kohen Beis Apras. And the Bavli does not have the word af bechulin. The word af means even, and in the Mishnah itself it says af bechulin lekoyin beis apras. That sounds like it means you can even make a eruv for a kohen in the beis apras, right? And the Bavli takes that out. Now, well, so let me explain what's going on here. According to the Bavli, this is all from Lieberman. According to the Bavli, which takes out the word af, the end of the Yerushalmi, the end of the Mishnah is already the beginning of the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah, for the beginning of the Mishnah says it's got to be in a place where the Kohen can go. Then along comes the Sumchus and says no, you can even make it. You can make it in a place where a Kohen can't go. He's arguing. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda said, and Sumchus and Rabbi Yehuda comes after him, both argue at the first time in the Mishnah. According to our gears on the Yerushalmi, when it says af never comes to argue. It means comes to add, and it means that even for a kohen you can even make an eruv in a beis apras in a place where there's a grave plowed under, right? So the question is, if according to Yerushalmi, so that it's coming to add on, so what's it adding on? What does he mean when he says you can make an eruv for a kohen for the beis apras? We know that. How we know that from the beginning of the Mishnah? Because the beginning of the Mishnah says you can make an eruv for a nazir with wine. Okay, we said why is that? Because even though the nazir himself can't drink it, somebody else can drink it. So what Sumchus is saying is obviously is just an extension of that. It's saying that you can make an eruv for a kohen in a place where there's a grave plowed under. That's obvious. You can make it because that's also, even though he can't go there, somebody else can go there. Like the Bavli, which holds that Sumchus is arguing, there's a very clear-cut argument. Sumchus says it's got to be something he can eat. It's got to be. It can even be in a place where he really doesn't have access, midrabanan. Because we say we ignore the Rabbanon, which doesn't allow him into that place, but it's got to be something he can eat. But like the Yerushalmi, Sumchus is not arguing at Tanakama, he's adding on to Tanakama. Well, what's he adding on to Tanakama? We already know from Tanakama that you're allowed to put something down as native, even that person can't eat it. So logic dictates if certainly you can put something down in a place where he can't get it either because somebody else can get it. So on that, the Yerushalmi answers that that our mission is going even according to Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai holds you have to be able to put down your furniture to get to be there, right? Now that sounds like you have to actually be able to set up a little dwelling place there, encampments, right? So if that's the case, if you have to be able to set up an encampment there, so I might say a kohen can't set up an encampment in a beis apras, or it's not permissible, right? So therefore I might say he's not allowed to put up an eruv there. So that's why we're saying, according to Beis Shammai, who also has to have like a little encampment, right? Even still, you can still put the eruv for a kohen in the beis apras. He's not allowed to go in there. since it's only a prohibition to Rabbanon, because it's not a true graveyard, it's only a place where there's a grave plowed under, and Midaraisa is allowed to go there, so therefore you put his Eruv there with his furniture, and even though he doesn't have access to it, it's still valid Eruv. Okay? I might have said that only according to Beis Hillel is the valid Eruv in the Beis HaPras. Why? Because according to Beis Hillel, in fact, that you don't have to have your furniture there. So Kohen doesn't have to set up a camp there. So it's not accessible the food to the Kohen, but it's accessible to somewhere else. But when Beis Shammai, he has to have a little camp there. So I might say it's not good for a Kohen to have neighbor in Beis HaPras. That's the chiddush of our Mishnah. According to Sumchus, that it is good. Okay? Sumchus ke Beis Shammai. And Sumchus is like Beis Shammai. The Tanina, we learned Sumchus Omer af b'chulin l'Kohen Beis HaPras. That's what Sumchus is saying, that even for that you're allowed to set up even for a Kohen his Eruv in the Beis HaPras, and even though theoretically he's not allowed to get it, not theoretically, in practice he's not allowed in there at all. Me'ata ask more if that's the case. Afilu Beis HaKvoros roihu larvelo shvus felucho. Now ask the Gemara if that's the case, right? That the issue is whether he can get in, and hypothetically he can get in because it's only this of the Rabbanon, right? And we ignore the Rabbanon. So listen, I have another even if it's in a cemetery proper, he can do it. How can do cemetery proper? Now shvus is a funny word. It's not clear what exactly the shvus is. Shvus usually means that this is the Rabbanon of Shabbos, but there's no real shvus here. Even if you say that there's a shvus by a Beis HaPras, right? In other words, that it means that the Beis HaPras, a Kohen may not enter the Rabbanon, but it's still very strange how you apply that to a cemetery, right? So it says, no, Shekenu royally kones b'shida v'tiva v'migdal. He can get in a sheda teva migdal. He can get into the Beis HaKvoros, even into a cemetery itself. Put a Kohen in a box, a wagon, and have him go into the wagon. And he can put a hole in the wagon. Pachas mitefach, less than a tefach in dimensions, because then the tumah doesn't go in. V'litcho bekush, and stick like a prong skewer. Excuse me. 1 second. Sorry.
You mean somebody can pull the wagon on Shabbos?
Yeah. They'll pull the wagon inside the cemetery. There'll be a special cemetery wagon. So he'll hop in, and then they'll roll him over to where the food is, and stick it stick it into on a skewer, over kisam on a stick, and lechol, and to eat it like that. So therefore, as the Yerushalmi says, if the logic of Sumchus is that somehow you can get into the Beis HaPras, right, by transgressing the Rabbanon. So you know what? I got an even better case for you. Go into the cemetery itself. In the cemetery itself, you can get in by riding in his wagon and somehow going in that way. So the truth is, the Yerushalmi doesn't answer the question. And that's Rabbi Yehuda, really, in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda is the last opinion in our Mishnah, says you can even make an Eruv for a Kohen in a cemetery, because he says you can use this whole trick of going in a wagon or a box or something. But the truth is, it's not such a difficult question on Sumchus. The Yerushalmi didn't bother answering it, but it is relatively easy to answer. Sumchus draws a line. He says, if we're going to go into a Beis HaPras, which is Nissa de Rabbanon, that we say that Chazal didn't stand on the Issa de Rabbanon of not entering the Beis HaPras, the field where the grave was plowed under, when it came to Erev Tchumen. And they allowed you to consider as the Erev Tchumen a valid Erev Tchumen, and overwhelmed that Issa de Rabbanon. When it comes, however, to the Issur D'Oraisa of entering a Beis HaKfaros, comes to the Issur D'Oraisa of Kohen entering a cemetery, in that case, Chazal said, we're not going to permit that for Erev Tchumen. Simple to say, we drew the line at that. We're not going to allow you to go into Beis HaKfaros, even by tricks, in order to go and make your Erev Tchumen. That far we're not going to go. Okay? Halacha Beis. Ma'arvin b'dmai, one is allowed to make an Erev Tchumen with, or Erev Chatzeres for that matter, with Dmai. Dmai means stuff which is questionable. We don't know if Trumas and Meiser have been taken off for sure. Most Amratim take off the Meisers, but we don't know for sure. But Meiser Rishon, Shenit Lo Trumoso Meiser Rishon, from which the Truma has been taken off. Trumas Meiser has been taken off, but it preceded. It was taken before the proper Truma was taken off. Meiser Sheni Vekli Sheniftu Meiser Sheni Ekli to redeem, but the additional fifth was not properly given. Hakwarim b'chala v'truma, Kohen can make their erev with chala or with truma. Avalo b'tevel, but they're not allowed to use tevel, meaning they're not allowed to use stuff which is untithed at all. V'lo b'meiser rishon shlo nidlo trumos, and no meiser rishon for which no truma has yet been taken off. V'lo b'meiser sheni v'hekdesh shlo niftu, nor are they allowed to use meiser sheni or hekdesh which has not been redeemed. If somebody sends his eruv in the hands of a cheresh shoyta v'katan, now this means you send somebody out to make your eruv tchumen for you, or your eruv chatzeres for you, and this person was an imbecile, was a child, or b'yam mishenam b'derev, he was not somebody you could see that there's such a content there. In other words, he was a mechal Shabbos. Ain't no eruv. If you told somebody else, listen, when they bring out the Eruv to such and such location, you receive it and formally enact the Eruv, then I raise Eruv, then it's a valid Eruv. Rabbi Yaakov Drumia boy, Rabbi Yaakov Drumia asked, Maslis and Loka Beis Shammai, is our Mishnah Nalik Beis Shammai? The Tanina we learned Shel Demai, if you have a lulav or esrog of Demai, well, esrog is a better example. If you have an esrog of Demai, the Beis Shammai Poslim, Beis Shammai says you may not use it for an esrog for Sukkos. Beis Hillel machshir it. Beis Hillel says it's okay. So Meiser Sheni Yerushalayim, if you have an esrog of Meiser Sheni in Yerushalayim Loito, it's better not to use it because you're supposed to eat it and not use it for a mitzvah. It's going to ruin it. V'im nato kosher, if you did use it for the mitzvah, it works. Now, what about here? It says in our Mishnah you can use the Mai for an Erev. You can't use the Mai for an esrog on Sukkos. Would Beis Shammai agree to our Mishnah or disagree with our Mishnah? But it might be that he disagrees with our Mishnah. So he says you can't use it for an esrog, you also can't use it for an Erev. Could be that esrog is d'oraisa, right? Erev is only the Rabbanan. Maybe by the Rabbanan we could be lenient and use the Mai to make an Erev, right? Rav Sheshes b'shem Rabbi Chia Rabba. Now this is often a tangent. Rav Sheshes b'shem Rabbi Chia Rabba said Tevel sheyesh lo of Tanai. This is not relevant to us. This is brought down here coincidentally. Tevel sheyesh lo of Tanai. This is a case where a guy was sitting Erev Shabbos and he remembered, Oivei, I don't have enough time to go home and set aside Trumas U'Maisros, but I need food for tomorrow, which I have at home. So he makes a condition. He says, whatever I leave over tomorrow, that should be the Trumas U'Maisros, right? So now, the next day when he starts eating it, it's Tevel, right? It's Tevel with a condition because he hasn't yet taken off the Trumas U'Maisros from it effectively yet. So Muktzah Tavla, nonetheless, it's not Muktzah, right? Because since he can eat most of it, so therefore he's allowed to carry it. Ketzros and nosin inavim miktzah. So what does he do? Before he begins eating it, he looks at part of it and says, "That'll be my truma at the end." And ocha miktzah, and the ocha zeshan eats the rest. Now coming back to our case, the Tani Beis Shammai says, "Ein ma'arvin b'meiser sheni b'Yerushalayim." It says Beis Shammai holds you can't make an eruv with meiser sheni in Yerushalayim. So, if it says you can't make there Meiser Sheni Yerushalayim, it sounds like you can't make an Eruv with the Mai either, right? Just like you can't use the Ma'aser Sheni Yerushalayim, you can't use the Mai. So you must argue in our Mishnah. Now, however, Omar Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Hoda dat Omar be'eruv chatzeros. No. When that which he said you can't use Ma'aser Sheni Yerushalayim, it's only to make Eruv chatzeros. What's Eruv chatzeros? If you want to go and join together a number of courtyards in Yerushalayim in an Eruv, you can't use the Ma'aser Sheni. Why is that? So the Achronim explain here, because Ma'aser Sheni you're not allowed to do business with. And to make Eruv chatzeros, it makes a partnership. It coalesces everybody together, so therefore you're not allowed to use Ma'aser Sheni for that purpose. Okay? Not because of any lack of edibility, but only because it's like making business with Ma'aser Sheni, which is a prohibited activity. Okay? Avo be'eruv tchumen, but Eruv tchumen, Tani, now there's another gears here which Lieberman brings down, Bikar Tani, which instead of Tani, Bikar Tani. Bikar Tani means people live outside Yerushalayim. Which, if you live in Yerushalayim and you have Ma'aser Sheni, you're not allowed to take it outside Yerushalayim, right? So how you can make Eruv Tchumen with it? Eruv Tchumen has to be 2,000 amos away from wherever you are. But somebody who lives outside Yerushalayim, a Kartani means somebody who lives in the hinterlands. Let's say he lives 2,000 amos away from Yerushalayim on the east. And he wants him to go 2,000 amos past Yerushalayim on the west. So he makes his Eruv Tchumen in Yerushalayim. Right? He puts it down in Yerushalayim in order to give him 2,000 amos on the other side. So that case says, Rabbi Yirmiyah, you can use the Ma'aser Sheni for that. The guy who lives on the west of Yerushalayim takes the Ma'aser Sheni to Yerushalayim, puts it in Yerushalayim, and he gets 2,000 amos on the east. Or vice versa. So in that case, so Eruv Tchumen, it's not a problem to use Ma'aser Sheni with for, because that's not like doing business. Eruv Chatzer, it's like doing business, right? Because you're making a partnership. But Eruv Tchumen, you're just putting down something where you're going to determine your place for Shabbos. That's like doing business, and that's okay. So that's what it says. Eruv Tchumen, Bakar Kartani, Nershenos and Eruv Yerushalayim. He's allowed to put his Eruv in Yerushalayim to continue carrying on the side. Shiyochol lalos v'choloch l'sham, because he can eat it in Yerushalayim. Now, getting back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that you can make an Eruv by a kotan, right? Shmuel Amar keben teisha keben eser eruvo eruv. By a child who's 9 or 10 years old, he can already make Eruv Tchumen for you. Amar Abiyah, in other words, a kotan our Mishnah was not reliable, is younger than that, but 9 or 10 he can make it. Amar Abiyah said that the Tamer Eruv Chatzer Tchumen, that's by Eruv Tchumen, where he actually has to put it down with the intent to require for you a place for to be your place for Shabbos. But Eruv Chatzeros, even a much smaller child, because Eruv Chatzeros nowadays we do it slightly differently. But the old days what it meant is to go to each person in the courtyard and get their bread or their matzah and bring it to one central location. So that even a smaller child can do, because there's no intent necessary in his part, just the mechanical deed of going and collecting the bread. Okay? Why do you do Eruv Chatzeros? Now, the reason why this is brought down is because it tells you that you can send a child. But that's what we're going to learn from this case. But the case itself is a case later in the Masechta, which tells us which tells us a point which is not directly linked to our sugya, which is that why Chazal make a takana that you have two separate steps, Eruv Chatzeros and Shituf Mevos. You have to make an Eruv in the Chatzer and a Shituf and a partnership also in the Movli. Why two separate steps? Because it brings peace to the world. How does it bring peace to the world? There was a case with a certain woman who was the enemy of her friend. She sent her Eruv. She didn't want to bring her Eruv herself to the friend's house in order to make an Eruv Chatzeros because she didn't like her. So she sent her Eruv to a friend's house by her son. Now here we see you can send an Eruv by a child. That's the why it's brought down here. But continuing on with the case, when the child got to the quote-unquote enemy woman's house, she embraced him, v'gafafte, and she hugged him, v'nashakte, and she kissed the child. Asav Amar Kumime. So the child come and said, I went to your enemy's house, and she kissed me and hugged me. Amra, so she said, Hachin Havas Rachmali, this woman loved me so much, V'lo Yadana, and I didn't know. B'toch Kach Asu Shalom. So now that since Erev Chatzos brought them together, they made peace between the two of them. Although that's that which it says, its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its pathways are peace. Okay? Now, if you send Yeruv in the hands of somebody who's cheresh or shaita v'katan, so then it's a questionable Eruv. Even though it's a valid Eruv, you have to go and stand with him to make sure he does it properly. You don't necessarily go directly where he is, but you have to watch him and make sure he does it properly. Right? Okay? Tamon, Rabbi Yezer Shem Rabbi Sheshes, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yezer Shem Rabbi Avun. So I got a contradiction. Because over there it says in Masechta Maisros that if I tell, if I say to my friend, I said you, Harani Maiser Yodcha, I'm willing to take Meiser off from you, for you, right? Harani Meiser Yodcha. So then, ain't tzarech lamodimo. I don't have to. Yes, I am. You want to say something? Okay. If I say to you, I will take Meiser off for you from your grain, you don't have to watch me. You assume that I do it correctly. So why here do I have to watch my agent, the cheresh, the shoita, the cotton, go and make sure the Erev Tchumin gets done properly? It's a contradiction, right? So it says, well, it's not a contradiction. Well, first of all, you say you have to watch him. In Meiser, it's talking about an adult. I offer as an adult to take off Meiser for you. That's why you can trust me. Here it's talking about a child. That's why you can't trust him. You have to watch him. Rabbi Yaakov Shem Rabbi Chena said, would say, kan v'kan b'godol. In both cases, talking about an adult. Or, as the word missing here, should be kan v'kan b'godol. Both cases talking about a child. It depends who's telling whom. Tamon over there, b'oimer lo harani ma'aser yotcha. I offer you to take ma'aser off, right? She'ena tzarech lamanimo, so you can trust me because I offered. I initiated the contact, right? But here, b'oimer lo hareva yodi. Over here, I said you make an eruv for me, right? So therefore, I initiated it. I, the sender. So therefore, I have to make sure to do it properly. The two cases can be derived from each other now. Now the girsa here is messed up. If you take a look at the Pnei Moshe, it brings down the right girsa. If you take a look at the first wide line of Pnei Moshe, towards the bottom, Hada Yalfa, 4 words from the end of the line, in the first of the wide lines.
Oh, first of the wide line. Oh,
you see it? You have it? So your new glasses?
No, I have not been able to read. I've been going through a workbook.
Oh, very good. This is our case derived from that case. If I say to you, I'll make an error for you, you don't have to watch me. That case is from our case. If you say to me, you make meiser for me, then you have to watch me, because obviously in that it depends who took the initiative in each case. Now it's an interesting thing the Mara Aponim brings down here. He says that's the Pnei Moshe's longer pshat. Pnei Moshe is the Rashi type. The Mara Aponim is the Tosfos type. So, but same author, same to the Korban Eidah is the Rashi type into a commentary, and the Shiur Korban is his Tosfos like commentary. Okay.
Who's not the Coordinators are Rashi type.
They're both Rashi types. Both on the top are Rashi type Pirushim. And both on the bottom are Tosfos type Pirushim. So the thing is that he said, the Paramahapanim says, in the Gemara and the Bavli, it brings down that there's a concept of Chazaka Shliach Osa Shlichuso. We assume an agent fulfills his agency by cases which are rabbinic. We don't say it by Torah cases. Cases which are rabbinic, like Eruvin, we assume that if you send an agent, you trust him. Here it seems from the Yerushalmi that that's not true. Because Yerushalmi says if you send an agent and you took the initiative in sending him, you got to watch him and make sure he gets it done properly.
Yeah.
So the Yerushalmi seems to argue on the existence of such an assumption. Okay? Halacha Gimel. If you put the Eruv in a tree more than 10 Tvachim above the ground, ein Eruv, it's not a valid Eruv. You put the Eruv in a tree below 10 Tvachim, less than 10 Tvachim above the ground, Harei Eruv, then it's a valid Eruv. If you put your Eruv in a well, even if the well is 100 amos deep, Harei Eruv, it's a valid Eruv. Similarly, if you put on top of a flagpole, of Rosh HaKundes, or any other type of pole, Kozman Shutosh notes, as long as it's not a tree, as long as it was once severed from the ground and then plugged back into the ground, Afil Gavor Me'ama, even if it's 100 amos tall, Harei Eruv, it's a valid Eruv. Nostum B'migdal V'noah, before if you put it into a closet and locked the door in front of it, and you lost the key, Harei Eruv, still valid Eruv. If you don't know that the key is in the right place, ain't Eruv, it's not valid Eruv. You have to know where the key is. Okay? Right? Now, this is we said in the Mishnah that it's below 10 Tvachim. If you put in a tree below 10 Tvachim, it's about Eruv. Yet, it's forbidden to carry it. You can't get. You have to leave it on the tree. That's what it's. Also, the not allowed to carry because you're using a tree. Lamata mishloisha. If it's below 3 tvachim, so it's within 3 tvachim of the ground, then what's you even allowed to carry the eruv off the tree? Because we said already in the Bavli when we learned this, we said that something which is below 3 tvachim is if on the ground, and therefore you're allowed to move it. Okay. For kasha, we have difficult like this. If it's eruv, it's a valid eruv. So you should be allowed to move it. In other words, the two things should be linked, right? If it's a valid Eruv, you should be allowed to carry it. And if it's not a valid Eruv, also it shouldn't be a valid Eruv. The two things should be linked. Either you should be allowed to carry it, and if it's a good Eruv, and if it's not a good Eruv, you shouldn't be allowed to carry it. How can you draw a distinction between the two? Says more, no. That's not a question. You know what? When does an Eruv become a valid Eruv? Twilight, right? Bein Hashmashos. Twilight, one is allowed to transgress the Rabbanons. So even if something is up a tree, you could still get it, Bein Hashmashos. So that's what they're saying. The rest of Shabbos, you can't get your Eruv. But since Friday evening, when the Eruv worked, it was accessible because the Rabbanon didn't apply during Bein Hashmashos, so that's why the Eruv is a valid Eruv. Okay? Me'ato asked if that's the case, I feel so why do you say if it's as long as it's below 10 Tvachim, if it's above 10 Tvachim, makes no difference. A tree is a tree. You can climb above 10 Tvachim and get it too. So Reader Shem Shmuel said, Tipoter Shoisa Kiroso Arba. It's about a case where the tree trunk was 4 Tvachim wide. So what does that make the tree trunk? If it's more than 10 Tvachim high and more than 4 Tvachim wide? Rishus HaYachid. And you are at the bottom in Rishus HaRabim, so you can't get it because that's a Doraisa. Even Bein Hashmashos you can't get it. That's what it goes on to explain. This is where the tree is surrounded by Rishus HaRabim. He says, I want to acquire my place for Shabbos below. But the tree where your Eruv is Rishus HaYachid. So it doesn't work. You don't have a valid Eruv because you want to acquire your place Rishus HaRabim, yet the tree is Rishus HaYachid. Okay? Tani, we learned. No, if you put the Eruv, now turn the page, the gear says all messed up here. Noso bekalkola. You put the Eruv in a basket, utlo be'ilon, and you put it up on a tree. Okay? You put the Eruv in a basket and put it up in a tree. Now the basket is up in a tree. Now the next word should be afilu, even if it's above. Even if it's above 10 tefachim. The next word should be eruvo, not eno. Eruv. Okay, so you put the basket above 10 tefachim hanging on a tree. It's not on the tree proper, but it's hanging on a basket on the side of the tree. It's a valid eruv. Now, take out the next 5 words, right? V'asel. And you're not allowed, however, to get in it because the basket is above 10 tefachim. Now it's carried off. Now it should be lemata. Now the next 2 words are mistakes. It should be lemata me'asor tefachim. If it's below 10 tefachim, muter l'tautlo, then you're allowed to carry it. So basically what we just learned is as follows. You have your eruv in a basket. If the basket is more than 10 tefachim off the ground, the eruv is about eruv, but you can't get at the food. The basket is below 10 tefachim off the ground, so the eruv is a valid eruv, and you can't get at the food. Okay? Kasha, difficulty is like this. Ime ruvo eruv is a valid eruv, yamuto l'tautlo, you should be allowed to carry it. Again, the same principle question we asked on page 1, on Amud Aleph, the page before. If his eruv is a valid eruv, you should be allowed to carry it. If he's not allowed to carry it, lo yeruvo eruv, then it shouldn't be a valid eruv. So how do we reconcile what's going on here? Rabbi Yaakov Hashem Rabbi Chanina said, I'll tell you. Fascinating thing. We had this in the Bavli, but it's hard. It's an obscure case. But it means it's like this. You have the basket. Imagine to yourself you have a tree. You have a basket hanging on the tree. So the basket is long enough.
Is long enough that if you turn it upside down, so it's going to be within 10 tefachim of the ground.
Okay.
Do you get the picture?
Yeah.
In a basket, you have a basket hanging on a tree.
Right.
Right now,
Even the top is below.
the opening right now is above 10 tefachim, right? Because it's facing up. But you could turn the basket upside down,
It would be below 10.
then it'd be below 10 tefachim. So in that case, the truth is that right now you can't take the food out because you'd have to stretch your hand up into Rishus HaYachid and come back down into Rishus HaRabim, right? Come back over from your Rishus HaRabim, we're standing into the Rishus HaYachid. But you could do something else. What could you do? Turn the basket upside down. That would cancel the Rishus HaYachid altogether, right? Because then it would just fall out. So then, in that case, it's a valid eruv. Rabbi Yosef, from this we learn a tremendous chiddush. Look at the next chiddush. Hadamras teaches us safshul shu nosim b'shus harabim. You have a bench in a public domain. Gavoah asar, which is 10 tefachim high. Now, how's the bench standing? On its side. So now it constitutes the Rishus HaYachid. It's 10 tefachim high. And it's wide enough that it's large enough that it's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. Okay, the bench itself is Rishus HaYachid. Mikhem Tshuroi L'Hofcho. Since you can, if you put your Erev Tchumin on top, it's good enough. Because you can turn the basket sideways. It's an amazing concept. You realize what's going on? You can turn the bench sideways. In other words, you can take something which is now Rishus HaYachid and undermine the Rishus HaYachid status as long as you don't move it. Meaning you turn it over, you don't move it. So you can take a bench which is standing sideways, put your Erev Tchumin on top of it, it's okay, because the next day you can turn over the bench. You can take a basket which is Rishus HaYachid, and it's okay, because the next day you can turn it over without moving it and change its status as a Rishus HaYachid. And then your Erev is accessible to you even though you're in Rishus HaRabim. It's an amazing concept. Okay? This teaches us Eruv is about Eruv, allowed to carry it. Tamatanina. We learned over there. Shnayim biyad. Do you have the place? Yeah, let me show you. Tamatanina. Tabbatai, we learned over there. Shtayim biyad adam, ve'echad be'iv achas bilon. You have two walls which are man-made, and one wall which is the tree. It's a sukkah. How many walls does sukkah need? 3. So 2 are man-made, and 1 is the tree. Or shtayim, 2 are the tree, v'achas biyad adam, 1 is man-made. Share the sukkah is kosher. Ve'ein lo b'yantiv, we can't use the sukkah on yontif. Why can't you use the sukkah on yontif? Because it's using a tree.
All the trees.
One wall is a tree. But I have a question. But here he said, even if the Eruv is hanging in a basket, I'm allowed to turn the basket upside down in the tree and get the Eruv out, and it's a valid Eruv. Here I'm also using the tree. Right? So what's the difference? So it says, very simple. There, it's talking about a case where the sukkah is really a tree house. You made 2 walls, but what's supporting the sukkah? The tree. You're using the tree itself, that's not permissible. Here, the basket is hanging on the side of the tree. And remember, we learned in the Bavli that there are opinions which hold Sida Elon, the side of a tree you're allowed to use. Okay? So he's using the side of the tree, so that's okay. Alright, is that clear? The 2 cases learn from each other. That case is learned from our case. Let's say in our case, you didn't actually have the platform, the sukkah founded on the tree. Rather, there were 2 pegs coming out of the tree, and you put your schach on top of them. But you don't actually have to use the tree itself. Using the side of the tree, just holding up your schach, right? Shikshera, that's okay. Because you're not using the tree itself, just the sides of the tree. But vice versa, we learn from that case to our case. If the basket was on the trunk of the tree, where actually it's not on the side of the tree, but being supported by the tree itself, that perhaps the Eruv is about Eruv, but also Tato, you're not allowed to carry it. Why? Because you can't you can't go and use the basket, because the basket is not just using the side of the tree in that case, it's using the tree proper. Okay? The truth is, on both cases, it's used on the side. The sukkah is on the side of the tree, and the basket on the side of the tree. If that's the case, so what's the difference between the 2 cases? I don't understand. So if one case, why isn't with the other case it's also? So it says, Kai Demar, B'Yakov Brach, B'Shem Rabbi Zira, to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, who we talk as in the Bavli too. Rabbono, you're not allowed to use the side of a tree. Even the side of a tree you're not allowed to use. So Shimon ben Elazar is not to use the side of a tree. Rabbono only holds you're allowed to use seeded studying the side of the side, but not the side itself. The Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Mutish Tamash al Tzidei Be'emo B'Shabbos, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said you're allowed to use the side of an animal, and he'd study Be'emo, he'd study Elon, and the same thing is true, you're allowed to use the sides of a tree. Says one more line. We're on the top of Chav Beis and Brachos. So now Lieberman changed the first word on this page to Ein. Ein instead of Eich. Einat roe omek gavor. Ask Yerushalmi, I don't understand something. How can you have an Eruv down in the hole? We said you're allowed to put an Eruv down in a well, even if it's 100 amas deep. Well, wait a minute. That's Rishus HaYachid. Because deep is like high. So you're standing on the rim of the well. How can you have your Eruv down there? You're an Eruv Rabim on the rim, and your Eruv is Rishus HaYachid down below. How's that about Eruv? So Shama gives a very simple answer. Abba Barav Chuna Mar B'Omer Shvisati Tachtav. It's where I want to acquire the Shvisa down below in the well, not up here on top. So it's I'm acquiring the Shvisa down in the well, so therefore it's valid. What's not valid is for me to be in one area and my Eruv to be in the valid area, in another area. But here I just say the well down below Rishus HaYachid, true, so I am content to acquire my Eruv down below in the Rishus HaYachid. Okay, that's enough. We did over 2 blocks. We'll stop here for today.